Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we got ourselves a track from an act named Reskyou titled Heaven Goodbye. And if we switch over to here we basically have a blank screen because we're going to be watching a music video. Now I've listened to the country version of this if I'm not mistaken. I've listened to an alternate version of the song, but this is apparently the original. It's a long song, it's about 6:45, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with the real estate. Without further ado, we're going to listen through this track from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Heaven Goodbye by Reskyou. Starting off with the sizzly guitars. Nice. Very atmospheric with the distorted guitars, drums, vocals, hook line. Phrygian mode and now with the bass line. Interesting use of the handing there the vocals. A lot of animosity in the tones of it, you know? I mean, like these bluesy pentatonic overtones here with the backing vocals called response. It's a great use of 2 minutes. It's kind of crazy to think that a lot of songs are this length and we're not really into the crux of it. We don't even feel like we're into the meat of it yet. Extra bar? Very grunge, reminiscent of the 90s Seattle scene.
Why did you go away?
I mean, having a guitar is a nice accompaniment. It's great drum pull there.
I'll see you another time.
I mean, like, we've got a situation here. We've had the lead guitar coming in and chiming in for a bit, never as the focal point, because the storytelling and the extra context provided there kind of drip fed. You know, that is still meaningful. Definitely a slow burn. You can kind of ascertain what it's about, you know, fairly early on, but great, a little bit of extra kind of intensity, variety to the drum drops. It's a very different tone to what we had with the country version that I listened to earlier. Very different. Almost the antithesis. Not quite, but close. I want to give a shout out to the drummer, actually. The 16th note hi-hats in this are a great little bit of development and extra detail. You know, like they didn't need to necessarily have those ghost notes in there, that mid-range focus, but we had it. There's not a lot else we could have really brought this track up at this point, but the despondent harmonies on the vocals here in these parts. That's the icing on the cake, you know. I love the sound of the feedback, though. Alright, let's see if we can figure this one out. Because this is the conclusion of my review of a track from Reskyou titled Heaven Goodbye, the OG, the original. What I think this track is about, I think it's about someone who's died, and basically you're saying to them, you know, why did you have to go like that? Let me do what I need to do down here so that I can get to you and that we can continue spend the rest of eternity together. Is the feel, the vibe I got from that. There is a sense of sadness in the vocal performance here, as well as some other unsettling harmonies there where we show a bit of vulnerability and a little bit of edginess and trepidation there. A little bit of depression, which makes sense with the grief that we can feel in these situations there. I'm sure the audio-visual experience, like the grayscale in the video, is also meant to sort of indicate that. But at the same time, I think that the vocal style on top of the story never was quote-unquote too much. We never kind of wallowed in our own self-pity or anything like that. We stuck to fairly easy to follow lyrical themes and lines that made sense with everything going on around it. And the singer was tremendous with her vocal technique, both in her head and chest voice. A little bit of ornamentation, some fancy stuff going with some of the vocal runs, the tails, their legato, and a vibrato, and all those other little techniques are good. There's some breathy parts, there was some more straightforward intensive parts. There was always a mistiness to it though, a mistiness to help it kind of sag into the ether, and Ultimately, I think that the vocal performance seemed very authentic for what we were talking about there. We did sound like we were mourning the loss of that person, but also in the hook sections with the bittersweet overtones, we were discussing trying to get back with that person and, saying it isn't the end. Just for now, I've got to do some stuff beforehand, So yeah, the vocals and the story made sense. I think the track at 6:43, it's a rare example where I don't necessarily mind that a track is this long despite the relative simplicity of the lyrics behind it. I mean, kind of like you're going through their grief, their experience coping with the situation, I think, is what this track is about. And, the combination of the guitars, the bass, the drums, and everything, that kind of early 90s grunge type kind of vibe overall with it, it's fantastic for this. I think it works well for the type of story we're telling there. The Phrygian modes, the flat seconds that we had in some of those verse parts, the darkness and foreboding there were appropriate. The build-up of the drums over the course of the track was fantastic. We really just had a great sort of almost ballad-esque kind of like decision to slowly progress it and add more and more as we went along without overplaying, and while continuing to respectfully pocket in a way that didn't sort of serve as a detriment when we're trying to focus on what the singer is trying to tell us, as well as the guitar lines, because of course we had these interesting power chords as well as some sort of more like feedbacky kind of effects there, where it was more about the sound of it rather than what it was playing. We had some interesting lead sections going over the blues and pentatonic scales, and we sort of interwove really interesting kind of dissonances with a more kind of bittersweet kind of like more kind of quote unquote real hook line chord progression there that really just kind of did swell, and it was full of warmth, which I appreciate from the tone of the guitars there, as well as the bass filling in the low end, making things nice and round and kind of centered, and providing a nice anchoring point for any of the progressions and lead lines over top, as well as the vocals, with other vocals kind of scattered around the stereo field, and with a bit of call and response going on there. We had a nice variety of different little musical ideas. We didn't necessarily have massive switches in the chord progressions and bass lines per section. It wasn't through composed in the sense that it wasn't like progressive. There weren't like crazy time signature changes or anything like that. But we don't need that in this piece. It was more about being a part of their experience, that loss of a person, and kind of like them coping with it and us bearing witness to it. The theme, I think it was grateful for the person's existence in their life as per the kind of the middling, almost, well, it wasn't major, but it was a little relatively more upbeat in the hook sections, but there was a sense of sadness and dread in the sadness that comes with the verse parts. And I think that the song, at least from what the instruments were playing, was trying to tell us that while things would probably be better when we were together, the fact that the person passed away in the first place was sad. This makes sense with the vocals, it makes sense with the story being told, so everything is quite well connected. I'm happy with how things are played. Again, I think the gradual development of the percussion, for example, with the 16th note grooves at the end, as well as the more intricate drum fills and signals that we have an understanding of music theory and composition, but also the need to not have everything the same throughout. I don't think there was a note out of place, and there was a synergy between the elements of the track. Finally, the recording, mixing, and mastering was great. I'm really happy with how things were leveled. I think that the vocals had a great presence to them. It was easy to tell where they were and follow them around the stereo field and to follow the main and call and responses or backing parts there. I think that the guitars were good as well. They were leveled well in the mix, filtered and EQ'd, and they had a great tone to them. Both the distortion was fantastic, very easy to kind of like get behind that. I think that the bass was nice and round and well controlled in the low end, and the drums were like punchy without being too overbearing on the rest of the mix. They were present in the mix, but they didn't kind of stab at you, and there was a nice like gluing of the various elements in the mix due to like the leveling being really adequate, as well as the compression. It was nice and wide in the stereo field. I think that the track had dynamic range, so there were changes of perceived loudness. And then finally, it was nice and low without pumping, so limiting compression was handled well. And I mean, at this point, I've listened to a lot of Reskyou's material, and basically, as I understand it, the whole idea of Reskyou is that part of what they do is they support animal shelters and everything like that. So they're basically trying to, how do I say this? They basically support their local animal shelters in the PETA movement and everything like that. So I think that's great. And I've seen themes of the animal stuff in their music, but I just wanted to mention that because I don't think I have before. So, yeah, they seem like they're good people and they genuinely care about both animals and the people they love. And this is another example of their passion for music as well. So this is my review of Heaven Goodbye by Reskyou. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias. And I'm sure this will be on all digital stream platforms. So stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.